Warana had a long day's hunting, and he came back to the camp tired and hungry. He asked his old mother for durry, but she said there was none left. Then he asked some of the other people to give him some dunbur seeds, that he might make durry for himself, but no one would give him anything. He flew into a rage, and he said, "I will go to a far country and live with strangers. My own people would starve me." And while he was yet hot and angry, he went. Gathering up his weapons, he strode forth to find a new people in a new country. After he had gone some distance, he saw, a long way off, a man chopping out bees' nests. The old man turned his face towards Varana and watched him coming, but when Varana came close to him, he saw that the old man had no eyes. He had seemed to be watching him long before he could have heard him. It frightened Varana to see a stranger having no eyes, yet turning his face towards him as if seeing him all the time. But he determined not to show his fear, but go straight on towards him, which he did. He came up to him. The stranger told him that his name was Maruna Milda, and that his tribe were so called because they had no eyes, but saw through their noses. Varana thought it very strange, and still felt rather frightened, though Maruna Milda seemed hospitable for kind. For he gave Maruna, whom he said looked hungry, a barquere filled with honey, told him where his camp was, and gave him leave to go there and stay with him. Varana took the honey and turned as if to go to the camp, but when he got out of sight, he thought it wiser to turn in another direction. He went on for some time, until he came to a large lagoon, where he decided to camp. He took a large drink of water, and then lay down to sleep. When he woke in the morning, he looked towards the lagoon, but saw only a big plain. He thought he must be dreaming. He rubbed his eyes and looked again. "This is a strange country," he said. "First I meet a man who has no eyes and yet can see. Then, at night, I see a large lagoon full of water. I wake in the morning and see none. The water was surely there, for I drank some, and yet now there is no water." As he was wondering how the water could have disappeared so quickly, he saw a big storm coming up. He hurried to get into the thick bush for shelter. When he had gone a little way into the bush, he saw a quantity of cut bark lying on the ground. "Now I am right," he said. "I shall get some poles, and with them and this bark, make a darder in which to shelter myself from the storm I see coming." As he lifted up a sheet of it, he saw a strange-looking object of no tribe that he had ever seen before. This strange object cried out, "I am a Bolgananu," in such a terrifying tone that Varana dropped the bark, picked up his weapons, and ran away as hard as he could, quite forgetting the storm. His one idea was to get as far as he could from Bolgananu. On he ran until he could see an enemy behind him. On he sped until at last he reached a camp, which was almost into before he saw it. In it were only 7 young girls. They did not look very cool. They gave him food and allowed him to camp there that night. He asked them where the rest of their tribe was and what their name was. They asked that their name was Meamei, and that their tribe were in a far country. They had only come to this country to see what it was like. They would stay for a while, and thence return whence they made a fresh start, and left the camp of the Meamei, as if he were leaving for good. But he determined to hide near and watch what they did, and if he could get a chance, he would steal a wife from amongst them. He was tired of traveling alone. He saw the 7 sisters all start out with their yam sticks in hand. He followed at a distance, taking care not to be seen. He saw them stop by the nest of some flying ants. With their yam sticks, they dug all around these ant holes. When they had successfully unearthed the ants, they sat down, sticks on one side to enjoy a feast, for these ants were esteemed by them a great delicacy. While the sisters were busy at their feast, Varana sneaked up to their yam sticks and stole 2 of them. Then, taking the sticks with him, sneaked back to his hiding place and stuck the lost yam sticks near together in the ground. Then he slept back into his hiding place. When the 2 girls turned around, there in front of them they saw their sticks. With a cry of joyful surprise, they ran to them and caught hold of them to pull them out of the ground, in which they were firmly stuck. As they were doing so, out from his hiding place jumped Lorana. He tightly seized both girls around their waist, holding them tightly. They struggled and screamed, but to no purpose. The two young girls compelled with his wish, and traveled quietly on with him. They told him that someday their tribe would come and steal them back again, to avoid... One day, when they were camped, Lorana said, "This fire will not burn well. Go you two and get some bark from those two pine trees over there." "No," they said, "we must not cut pine bark. If we did, you would never see more us." "Go, I tell you, cut pine bark. I want it. See you not the fire burns but slowly? If we go, Lorana, we shall never return. You will see us no more in this country. We know it." "Go, women, stay it, not to talk. Did ye e'er see talk make a fire burn? Then why stand ye there talking?" Into the bark. As she did so, each felt the tree that her combo had struck rising higher out of the ground and bearing her upward with it. Higher and higher grew the pine trees, and still on them, higher and higher from the earth, went the two girls. Hearing no chopping after the first hits, Lorana came towards the pine trees to see what was keeping the girls so long. As he came near them, he saw... Quickly, the two girls climbed up from when they heard the voices of their sisters. When they reached the tops of the pines, the five sisters in the sky stretched forth their hands and drew them in to live with them there in the sky forever. And there, if you look, you may see the seven sisters together. You perhaps know them as the Pleiades, but the other people call them the Meamei.